yeah, I think if you are an investor, you always have these
Ups and downs. Yeah.
rules to show. So there were a number of companies. There was one company back in 2011 where we had invested based on a certain thesis on oil. It was a equipment and manufacturer, and that the oil cycle turned, and then we realized it's a global market. There are too many just geopolitical risks associated with that space. So that didn't turn out the way we had expected it to.
Hi, I have with me Harmanpreet Singh ji. Harmanpreet Singh ji is founder and managing partner of Prath Ventures. He funds early startups till Series A funding, especially in consumer business segment. Hello, sir.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. Thank you, sir. So I have few questions for you.
Sure.
So you started your journey working at ICICI Ventures and then founded Prath Ventures.
Right.
So what was that one thing which has taken you from ICICI to Prath?
Okay. Actually, it's a bit longer than that. I worked for a couple of years before ICICI as well. And then I worked with ICICI for 3 years. And there, my boss, Renuka Ramnath, she used to be the CEO at that time for ICICI Venture. And she quit and started another firm called Multiples Private Equity.
Okay.
So I was actually one of the first hires in that team. So I became a part of the founding team at Multiples. I had a great run there. I spent almost 11 years there. So there we were doing mostly private equity. And quite coincidentally or luckily, I started investing personally into early stage companies because one of my friends, he was starting up a company and I became his first angel investor. And then one of my other friends pushed me into angel investing, saying, you should do more, I'm doing this and so on. So that's how my journey into early stage started. And, you can say one thing led to the other. I always had this thing about starting something of my own. So I left in the middle of COVID. I left my job. I took about a year's break and then decided that, now is the right time for starting a consumer-focused fund. So that's how Prath was born.
So you have done a lot of your homework and initial things before starting it.
Yes.
What are the key factors do you consider before investing in a startup?
Right. So look, there are a number of things, right? But at a very high level, what we are looking for is we're looking for someone who wants to create a large business. Because for us as VCs, it is important to have an outcome, certain outcome, so that we can deliver returns to our investors. So the first, I think, because there could be many other ways of building businesses. There could be a very slow, sustainable way, and saying, I want to be a bootstrap business and I want it to be a lifestyle business. Once you take VC money, you have certain growth, your aspirations, and therefore we look for that in a founder. Second, of course, for us, it is very important that we invest mostly in consumer, categories. So what is the unique insight that the customer has, whether it is from his past experience or he's spoken to a lot of consumers, or maybe he started with something and he figured out some insight which was not very visible, right? So what is that unique insight which he has? And third, I would say is, just the hustle, because India is ideas are only worth so much.
Right. Yeah.
So execution, it all boils down to that. What kind of team can you hire? What type of team? How can you manage it? And how can you do a great part of execution? So I think that's very important for us.
So the same way in a startup, also you look for how much homework he has done, how much consumer insight he has.
Absolutely.
Can you share a success story of a startup you invested in and that has exceeded your expectation?
Yeah, I'll probably pick one of the current companies which we're very it's doing really well. It's still early days for them. This is a business in the lab-grown diamond space called Okera. So when we invested, they were just one store, and they were doing about 20 odd lakh from that store. Very, very young.
Right.
But we were very excited by first the founders. I think they came with those kind of insights and expertise. One of them had been managing a retail business, a large retail business for a listed company. The other founder was actually running a retail consulting firm of her own for a long time. So we thought they had the right and passion for jewelry as well. All right. So we thought they were the right people to build this. And then second, we thought the category itself was very interesting. It's going through a tremendous disruption.
Yeah, and a lot of opportunities in that segment has come up suddenly.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So $80 billion market globally.
Yeah.
It's all going to get revamped in a different way. We all are kind of expecting and hopeful of how it turns out. But it's going to be a large disruption. So we're very excited by that.
Yeah, and similarly, something which you expected will go beyond and has not turned out to be that well.
So yeah, I think if you are an investor, you always have these
Ups and
wounds to show. So there were a number of companies. There was one company back in 2011 where we had invested based on a certain thesis on oil. It was a equipment and manufacturer, and then the oil cycle turned, and then we realized it's a global market. There are too many just geopolitical risks associated with that space. So that didn't turn out the way we had expected.
Then the next decade in Indian market promises to be thrilling and evolving journey. And we should all be prepared to update our mental models. I read somewhere from your post. So what potential do you see in tier 2 and tier 3 cities?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the reason I made that statement, I think, was, as investors, we carry a baggage. Maybe, I would have invested in some company which did not do well or some business which did not scale. I think we have to keep pace and update ourselves because India is changing. India is now becoming a large consumer economy. We're moving from a $2,500 GDP per capita to $5,000. So the kind of spends that are happening are different. So that's why I said we have to, update our mental models. From a tier 2, tier 3 perspective, we are actually, even without planning for it, we've invested in 3 companies which are based in tier 2 cities of the 7 that we have done. So almost half the portfolio is actually, and the fourth one that we're kind of evaluating very closely is also based in a tier 2, tier 3 city.
That's really.
So I think that whenever I come to a smaller town, I mean, Indore is fairly large, but even smaller towns, right? I think the amount of entrepreneurship which is happening organically is phenomenal. And if you even look at the colleges, some of those colleges in those cities, half the jobs in those colleges are being filled by startups.
Starters, right.
So there's a lot of exposure for the younger generation towards startups.
What a specific skill set do you feel that a founder should have?
We have.
In tier 2 and tier 3 cities, they don't get exposure. So what a specific skill set they should develop so as to compete basically in this startup?
That's a very good question. Because I don't think there is any limitation on capability, competence, integrity in any of the cities. But, a large, I won't even say large city, I would say working in an organized setup. Let's say if you've gone to and worked in a larger company, which is an MNC, or you worked in a startup, which has raised money, gives you a different kind of a perspective.
Right.
So as preparation, I would say anyone who wants to start up and maybe he's not got that exposure, maybe it's a good idea to go and work for a couple of years.
In MNC or
in MNCs or in startups, in the space that you want to build in. Okay. So you get exposure to a lot of different concepts, how people raise money, how do they go from 0 to 1, 1 to 10, etc., etc.
Right. Yeah. The rapid fire round will go for. So Harmanpreet as an engineer or as an VC, which is more close to your heart?
The VC, definitely. I think I'm no longer an engineer.
So you are a risk taker more than a technical person.
Yeah, absolutely.
So one word for budding startups?
I would say right investor. Choose your right investor when close.
But then those who don't want to go for investment then?
Right. Focus on your customer.
One word for investor?
Partner. We are partners to startups.
Yeah, but say, actually, we often talk of advices to startups.
Right.
Nobody advises to investor.
Okay. Okay.
So what they should look for?
Build conviction. Don't get carried away by current trends or FOMO. Build conviction and invest.
That is very important. Experience or degree? What do you see in a startup?
Experience.
Founder experience. Indore, as an upcoming IT hub or cleaner city? What is more in your mind for it?
For me, it is cleaner city because I've not experienced the IT part of it yet.
Okay. Then IMA Conclave. How do you find this IMA Conclave?
Amazingly well organized. I think this was just beyond my expectations on this, and it's been a real pleasure coming.
Okay, so I should take it as a compliment. And what is area where you think that some more things to be added to this conclave?
No, I think it was very well done. maybe just as if I have to say something, then would love a greater focus on startups. It's a lot more focused on large businesses maybe right now, but would love a lot more focus on startups as well.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Absolute pleasure.